very excited about this because he recognised it was the pan painter and attributed it to the pan painter, but I don't think the auction catalogue actually said that, and he went down to London to buy it and was really enthused about this, and apparently on the train he got into conversation with a young woman, and in his excitement he told her all about this and then had a complete panic that she was going to go to the auction house and bid against him, realising what a bargain he was going for. Alongside this research activity, the collection has always been used for teaching. Brian was very proud of the way it was used to teach postgraduates. There's a wonderful picture here. Any of you who know Jim Crow at Edinburgh University, here he is, in the 1970s. A lot more hair, fantastically bearded. Tony Sporfuff has done a runner, but I'm dating this to the mid-1980s on the grounds of his hairstyle. Again, using the collection for a teaching workshop, and these are some more recent Greek Archaeology MA students, again working with objects in the collection, and this teaching activity has gone on almost from the very outset of the collection's existence and was something that Brian had a very, very strong commitment to. In more recent years, that teaching has expanded a great deal, and there are several generations of Newcastle school children who've used the collection to learn about the Greeks and have enjoyed encountering the objects Brian has collected. The bottom corner here, these we actually took on Wednesday. We had a whole range of children in from West Cheshunt School as part of our celebrations of Brian's life and Brian's achievements. They did various art activities. These children up here are helping us make the Temple of Zeus on display upstairs. The ones down below are making Rhyton. So we've got a replica Rhyton here, and they're attempting to make their own. Those are going to be fired and returned to the children in a few weeks' time. There's some very impressive creations there. Just to show you, I think the temple's brilliant. I love the cult statue that we made for that. And I think Brian would have been impressed. The collection over the years also received quite a bit of media attention. Probably the most famous case, and this is one that the Lord Mayor talked about last night, so I rather feel she's stolen my thunder, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much. But we had half of a lion head water spout in the collection. Brian realised, looking at a catalogue, that the other half belonged to a Swiss collector called Leo Mildenberg. Brian eventually managed to reunite the two halves and actually persuaded Leo Mildenberg to leave his half to Newcastle and to the collection on his death. And it generated a huge amount of press interest. And here we have Brian proudly looking on at the two reunited halves, and that made the national press quite fantastic that these two halves, which, as the newspaper headline says, hadn't been together for a considerable period of time, were able to be reunited. And I know Brian did various interviews for that as well, which he thoroughly enjoyed. This is another object that generated quite a bit of media interest. This is a bronze spear butt from a Macedonian sarissa, on display again upstairs in the gallery. And it actually has an inscription on the bottom here, and I think when Brian purchased this, he hadn't noticed the inscription, and it was only later on that he realised the Greek letters MAK for Macedonia were there, and this again generated quite a lot of publicity for the museum. The other thing that Brian was enormously proud of was the way in which he built up the holdings in the university's Robinson Library till we have a very, very impressive collection of books relating to Greek and Etruscan archaeology. And these really complement the artefacts in the Shefton Gallery. And it is a fantastic research resource. I use the library a lot, and I feel very lucky that I don't have to rely on interlibrary loans a great deal, because Brian was such an avid collector of books and material to support the archaeology collection. On many an occasion, Brian has twisted my arm to buy catalogues if he found out I was going anywhere with an interesting exhibition. I once returned from Amsterdam with a suitcase full of books that Brian had persuaded me to take back. He was continually acquiring for the library right up until the last years of his life. And they're very fond of Brian in the university library. And there is actually a display case at the moment outside the liaison librarian's office with one or two publications relating to the collection and a little bit of information about Brian's life as a collector. Oh, sorry. Catastrophe. Yes. The very last slide I was going to show you, this is a very sensitive slide changer, and I'm a little trigger happy. The very last slide I was going to show you was just an obituary for Brian in the Journal, which is the local paper. And very shortly after his death, the Journal produced a very fulsome obituary of Brian, outlining his achievements. And I think that's a real testimony to Brian's importance to the city of Newcastle. Does it not want to show it? Maybe that's why it's not loaded. Okay. Okay. There we go. Brilliant. But I think it just goes to show he was very highly regarded in Newcastle. I think the city appreciated his achievement in building up this collection, and I think the fact that the collection has moved into the Great North Museum, which is seen as a real civic asset, has raised the profile of his collection and the status of that collection. And I still feel remarkably proud to be looking after his objects and being responsible for his collection. Thank you.
One of the things you did was to remind me of how much I enjoyed the best professional year I have had here, taking over from Brian at the end of the socialist, and why.